Hi, everyone. Today, me and Tete will be talking about Silver Age versus Golden Age Superman, and this will be the first in our series about this. So, this episode, we're going to start by talking about what Golden Age is and why we're talking about this topic. So, recently, after watching the Batman 2022 and making a reaction slash review video of it last week, as well as just today, which me and Tete just did, please see the links in the description to see both of these videos. Tete and I thought more about Superman and why a lot of his movies aren't that well done. From her perspective, anyways. She thinks, and I would agree with her, that Superman's character has been changed since the golden age of his series, which was in the 1930s and 40s. After World War II, his character got increasingly sanitized and was turned into basically another version of Captain America, so to speak, sort of a role model for young boys to teach them about responsibility. In these next few podcast episodes, we'll be exploring how and why Tete doesn't like Silver Age Superman stories and why she prefers Golden Age in general. So, the first question to start this off is, when were you first exposed to Golden Age Superman comics?
So that very excellent question, and thank you very much for the wonderful summation you provided. Um, I was first exposed to Golden Age comics at a very surprisingly young age. I was 5, turning on 6 when I first discovered them. They weren't the crisp remastered reprints that have recently been released by DC in the past 10 years or so, but rather the really low definition, if you will, reprints. But I had found them through my 30s, 40s, and I thoroughly enjoyed that kind of setting because I was also a big fan of a lot of black and white film, a lot of the noir cinema. So I instantly thought, well, this is going to be fun, and I really hadn't had any exposure to superheroes then. And I was just thrilled what was coming off the page. A lot of it I didn't understand. I mean, when you're 6 years old, there's a lot of things you don't understand. But I just loved the fluid motion of it, the energy it gave off. And it also kind of evoked a lot of ideas and concepts as well as characterizations that I saw in a lot of action movies. And I will admit, as a young kid, I did see a lot of what a lot of people would deem violent action movies of the 80s and such. So I was no stranger to kind of like violence and action and that sort of thing, as well as a lot of noir cinema. So I instantly fell in love with it. Um, and uh, then from there on, it was the 90s, so there was a bit of a renaissance of a lot of superhero things, and I would catch glimpses and pieces of like the animated series of Batman from the 90s, as well as the animated series of Superman from the 90s, which I'll have to say, I think the former was executed a little bit better than the latter. But, the latter did have its merits too. I think it was trying to do it through a Batman lens, which didn't quite work, but it worked in some points. But that was my first exposure to Golden Age comics, and they will always remain my favorite because they're true to the character.
Hmm. How about Silver Age? When were you first exposed to Silver Age and what did you think of those?
So Silver Age, I got my hands on it pretty much after Golden Age. Like with Golden Age, I read a few issues, and then I found a lot of Silver Age. Um, there were some things I liked about Silver Age as a kid, but one thing I just felt weirded out was just the coloring. The artwork felt so different, and there was really none of this like this tough man of action. It just felt more of a sort of a sanitized uh person trying to be so good. It was just it felt wrong. At first I thought, well, I don't know, maybe this is his brother or a son. You know, I thought this isn't the first thing I originally read. Um, I guess I also I didn't know what to think of a lot of different things, like a lot of the concepts, like a lot of the focus on um, the extraterrestrial stuff, things like different characters. I mean, of course, when you're that age, you're okay with it. You know, you think, oh, that's cool, or like, oh, he has a dog, or oh, there's Supergirl or something, or you know, some of the other you know offshoot characters that emerged in Silver Age. But it just didn't click with me. It didn't have that. I couldn't relate to it anyway. I mean, it was one of those things where I understood, like, say, a mafia thing going on because I'd watch a lot of crime noir, film noir. But I couldn't really wrap my head around this weird green alien with these funny things on his head, zapping stuff. Yeah, so Silver Age, I thought a lot of it was good. I guess also too, at that point too, a little bit later, I'd seen the you know, Superman 1 and 2 from 78 and 81, and that's just blatantly Silver Age right there. I kind of liked it, but at the same time I didn't because well, being that young, like 7, 8 going on 9, I thought, and this is no offense, I kind of thought Lois was ugly and mean, and I didn't like the way Superman looked so smooth and was such a total geek as Clark. Like, that's not how Clark originally is. Clark, yeah, sure, he doesn't want to really get into too much violence, but he has a spine, you know. But I mean, I don't want to upset fans. That's just how I processed it at the age of 7 to 9. So that was my thing with Silver Age, and then I when you there's such a glut of material of that time, you just get exposed to all of it. So that's what I thought of it. It was weird, jarring, uncharacteristic. I did not like it.
Right. And would you say that the film you recently watched with me, Red Sun, is a Silver Age film?
I don't know. I want to not. It is technically okay. Canonically, it is like Silver Age. You know, you've got Brainiac and all this, you know, ridiculous, you know, plot devices crammed in there, but the designs and feel and that kind of harder edge to Superman does feel very golden age. Maybe that's what was kind of appealing because visually and expression wise, it felt golden age, which felt wonderful. Like visually, Red Sun was wonderful to look at, and the comic is wonderful to look at, the graphic novel. Um, but story wise and with villains and all that, it fell short and felt it's like at the very end, well, not at the very end, but like in the very middle, like the moment I heard Brainiac, I thought, no, 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 this isn't going to be deep anymore. I thought we were going to have a deep discussion about authoritarianism and totalitarianism and the consequences of government and, you know,
No.
being the moral arbiter of a nation or something. I thought we were going to have a deep discussion, and I thought he was going to have conflicts and maybe memories of life on a collective farm, or you know, trying to abolish gulags or something. We didn't get any of that. We got this ridiculous thing of aliens and zapping and zip zap, and then of course they have to cop out in the end of the animated film and have him survive, which I would have preferred to have seen him sacrifice himself, which I think, if I remember correctly, happens in the graphic novel. So visually nice, a feast. I loved it. Um, Hottest visual Superman in animation, right after, you know, Fleischer's version. Um, but everything else just fell down because it had to have aliens and Brainiac.
Right. So let's move on to the next question, which is related to why you don't like Brainiac. What is the least appealing thing about Silver Age? Is it how the villains are, like Brainiac, for example? Does it feel like a Saturday morning cartoon?
So much of Superman and Silver Age, like I would even say the very last twilight years of Golden Age start to go downhill as there's less creative control by the original creators and more pressure, to appeal to a post-war public. Um, so the least appealing thing about Silver Age is not only the artwork, which is terrible, which is where we get the terrible body dimensions, the overemphasis on exaggerated, I should say, dehydrated muscles. Like, are you drinking enough water, Clark? Are you eating enough protein? Please tell me you're drinking orange juice and eggs in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, but it's the villains and the conflict. It goes to very Saturday morning villain of the week, monster of the week kind of thing. You get these outlandish villains that have no real characterization, very flimsy motivation, and just seems so silly and ridiculous. So I mean, this is a far cry from, say, the criminal social nuance of, say, the Batman's Riddler of this year, um, which is the opposite. But you get these really cartoony things that feels like pretty much a Saturday morning cartoon. And unfortunately, with a lot of adaptations of Superman, that's what some of it was. I don't want to think about those dark days of the 60s and 70s. That was very dark.
Mhm.
Whew, gives me shivers when I think about that, especially like the awful stuff by Filmation and then the 70s with Hanna-Barbera, which I will admit I watched as a kid and I did kind of like, because when you're that young, you're thinking, oh well, I get to see this character again, but it just didn't jive with me because I didn't want him really fighting aliens and having so many OP powers. I wanted to see him take down bad guys that I could feel I could see, or that could very well exist even in my world, albeit maybe with different clothes, because we're not in the 30s anymore, but something real, and also just to struggle as a man, because if he can do everything with just the tip of a finger, there's no real challenge or anything. And I also didn't really like how it was just very dumbed down, like because originally, I mean, he is an intelligent fellow. He does understand a lot of things, but they just made him kind of denser than a brick. And then they had to just exaggerate Clark's geekiness to a whole new level. Like, why? Like, so,
Mhm.
but yes, the villains were the worst. Even Lex Luthor just turned into something like a cackling, businessman capitalist, just hard. I don't know, like I don't know. I'm trying to think if Zuckerberg or Musk just turned full blown evil. Well, I guess we already
Mhm.
have one. That's Bezos. So I guess our real life Lex Luthor, but he's not building anything. Well, wait a minute. He did build a spaceship. Huh? I don't know. Maybe Bezos is trying to be Lex Luthor, but the rest of the villains turned out really poorly. You get so many terrible villains. Like, and I know fans will come after me. This is my opinion, but for me, things like Brainiac, random villains like Toyman, the prankster, which is like a cheap ripoff of the Joker, but so terrible. Um, uh, Queen Bee, General Broad, and even Darkseid. Darkseid just feels like a darker, gothic edgier version of Thanos without a glove. You know, um, which I kind of understand if you're going to go for an OP mythology thing like Snyder did. Dark Side can work pretty good, sort of. But honestly, when you're doing something like that, I just feel like you're trying to play catch up with Marvel rather than have something more compelling and inwardly threatening. But um, everything else feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. So for me, the only Silver Age villain I will truly get behind, if you really want to believe that Clark is Kryptonian, and all that, and an alien from another planet, I'm okay with General Zod, because General Zod is like Clark, or by his Kryptonian name, Kal-El, is a last survivor of a dead planet, and I can understand why there would be conflicts, that this last survivor too finds a fellow survivor, and hey, let's dominate this planet and remake it into Krypton, but much better. But there's so many political and ethical questions at play, social questions at play. So if you want to play at that, take the extraterrestrial canon with Clark Kal-El and do that with General Zod, it turns out very beautiful, which Snyder did wonderfully in Man of Steel, the 2013 film. Um, but but then again, I think about Superman 2 from 1981. Oh my gosh, General Zod was such a Saturday morning cartoon thing. It's ridiculous. If you ever see clips from that, you will see why it is so blastedly Saturday morning cartoon. Uh, but yes, Silver Age. I think it was just the fact that, and also just sanitizing Superman so much. Such a pure-hearted Boy Scout, never
Mhm.
wanting to kill, never wanting to, and it's not even a matter of killing. I mean, he doesn't even really want to, really whop the bad guys, and it just feels like, and also he starts to feel more smug and not smug, but like he's too self-assured in his own moral compass and ethics. Um,
Mhm.
at least with Golden Age, it was like he kind of knew what he was doing wasn't 100% on the up and up, but he was like, "Oh, to heck with it. I have to do it. If there's an emergency, I'll just have to do it. Ends justify the means, and my I can stretch my morals and ethics a bit. Like it's not about so much my moral or ethics. It's about the situation that demands it. But this just felt with Silver Age, and also just kind of rubbing away all his flaws. Just sanding off all of his flaws. He
Mhm.
really didn't have this tough working class mentality with him anymore. He was more of a kind of a polished, middle aged, boring, middle class. No, I shouldn't say middle aged, middle class, polished choir boy. And
Mhm.
I just couldn't stand it. I really, really couldn't stand it. I missed the tough, the tough roughneck of the 30s.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much, if I could list everything I found wrong with Silver Age, everything that I disliked and everything that it took away or corrupted or lobotomized from the original Superman, it would take a long list, kind of like that meme from the movie The Mouse Detective, where the villain rolls out a list of new rules, and the list is so long they have to open a curtain from an archway to let the list roll. It's a mile long. That would be my lengthy list of everything that I found wrong, and everything above about Silver Age, which I don't think we have time in this podcast, but I just to put that out there.
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't watched Silver Age or really anything of the Superman canon, but from what you've told me, it makes sense why you wouldn't like Silver Age because it feels very reductive and it's basically turning a character inside out in a way, just kind of turning him into a hollow husk.
Yes, it has reduced him to pretty much a hollow husk. He is nothing more than this choir boy scout, um, just kind of preaching morals to everybody, and just kind of reinforcing very stolid, stagnant ideas of morality and ethics. Um, and it just feels sort of very PCA. It feels very like Saturday morning cartoons where they teach you a lesson at the end of it. Like don't smoke or don't drink, or don't let bullies pressure you or something. Which I think is good to impart to a younger audience, but this is not how he originally was. I mean, there was none of that really. I mean, you might get some occasional discussions about a moral or ethic or something like that, because I mean, that's up to the creators, and as well as that, but this just feels like so much, and like I said, this is what makes him into this really idealized, squeaky, boring Boy Scout. He's not a human anymore. He's just a husk to fill in all these ideals and everything, and it's no wonder he's set up for parody and mediocrity.
Yeah, totally. I understand. I mean, it's very disappointing when someone takes a character and does that to them. I agree with your analysis of him being lobotomized. It does feel like they have done that. And they're doing it mostly to, like I said, teach young boys a lesson, right? It feels very educational and not something that's really in the flesh, so to speak.
It does. It does feel very educational. It's very much like those, the end of your Saturday morning cartoon where you have to learn a lesson about something. And it's just frustrating because I would have to say, if the hero genre had not really branched out as it did with all these different characters and different canons and comics becoming what comics have been over the history and what they are now, I feel like Superman would have became sort of a classic and famous pulp fiction character, kind of like Solomon Kane or Tarzan or
Mhm.
Doc Savage. You know what I mean? Like, it's pulp, it's pulp fiction, it's pulp, graphic art comic. But this character feels so iconic and so adventurous and kind of mature and a little, just a tad bit of edge on there, just the perfect amount of edge that, it would have been perfect as a standalone character rather than sort of being the OG of superheroes, which, everyone is copied, cookie cutter paste, and everyone kind of tries to be with a lot of their heroes and everything. I feel he would have gone down as a classic pulp icon, um, instead of kind of devolving into, like, well, both as kind of like an icon OG of superhero genre, like the OG of them. But also like the most least beloved son, if you will, in DC canon, and one that often gets parodied and just subjugated to a lot of substandard qualities in a lot of depictions. Like, I mean, you can kind of see there's a lot of attention and quality taken with Batman, but not so much with Superman. It's so rare to find good things. Like, for every 10 wonderful things you find about Batman, comics, movies, whatever have you, you're only going to find possibly one decent one for Superman. At least that's how I feel. Fans may beg to differ. I know a lot of Superman fans love Silver Age. They love the kind of moral core figure that he is, this role model, but that's not my Superman, unfortunately.
Mhm. I understand, yeah. Right, and I also think that they modified him a lot, which we will cover in the next episode of this mini series about Golden Age versus Silver Age. They also did this to him because they wanted him to contrast with Batman.
Very much so. Very much so, because a lot of DC fans like to argue that, well, oh, Superman and Batman are such polar opposites. Superman is all sunny in the day, and Metropolis has so much open air and, all that. And then they have, oh, but Batman's at night, and Gotham is crowded in the criminal underbelly. And, Superman's so cheerful and bright and loves to help people and is sweet. Meanwhile, Batman's so edgy and angry, and, he punches people, which I don't know. I guess people forgot that, Superman punches people too through brick walls.
Right,
And
exactly.
yes.
So we'll cover more about Batman versus Golden Age Superman and why you think that DC kind of favors Batman over Superman in general, especially, after Silver Age.
Exactly. I really would love to delve into that, and I can't wait to delve into that into the next episode with you.
Thank you for joining, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.